Welcome to the 12th episode of the Film Illiterates podcast, your home for uninformed, unfiltered, ill-advised movie talk. I'm your host, Joe Campbell, and joining me today are Alex Patton.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
And Nate Stone.
Hey, everyone, how's it going?
Are you guys happy that I remembered to include both of your last names this time?
Yeah, you actually put me first. I've always been last.
Well,
too.
you're the kind of the star of the evening this time.
This is your episode, Alex.
True.
Exactly.
That is correct.
So a few episodes ago, we did something called movie homework, where one of us would pick a movie and we all have to watch and discuss it on the show. Well, we're not doing that anymore. I mean, we're doing that, but we've renamed it. It's now called Pick a Flick. And just every few episodes, one of us is going to pick a new movie that we're all going to have to review on the show. So I think it'll be fun. And this week, it is Alex's turn to pick a flick.
So, Alex, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you dream of sushi?
You know what? Sometimes I do.
You do?
Yeah, that's interesting because that relates to the movie we're reviewing today.
It also relates to what we're eating right now.
Yes, we actually have sushi as well.
Damn it, I do not have sushi, unfortunately, today.
Yeah, we didn't give the memo to Joe. We wanted him to be left out.
Yeah, so for my movie, for our Pick a Flick, I decided to have us watch and review Jiro Dreams of Sushi. It's a documentary on Jiro Ono, who's a master sushi chef in Japan, and the documentary goes over his life and his craft that he's worked his entire life to perfect and master, and so that's going to be what we're talking about today.
So we'll be reviewing that in the second half of the show as our main attraction. But as always, we're going to open this episode with what we've watched recently. Alex, why don't you go ahead and go first, since this is your episode.
Okay. Haven't been watching a whole lot other than Jiro. I've actually been just really diving into playing Apex Legends. I believe I talked about it last episode, but it's just the new battle royale from Respawn, the guys who did Titanfall. It's been just a hell of a lot of fun, honestly. It's a really, really well fine-tuned game. The base mechanics are really fantastic, kind of taking them off of Titanfall 2, so you already had that starting off with a really great foundation. The fact that they have different like classes of heroes or like legends characters, adds a really cool dynamic to the game, because instead of just straight firefights, you got to watch out for different abilities and whatnot that each character will have. So every fight is going to be a little bit different depending on what's kind of like team composition each squad that you run into has. So that's been a lot of fun. Almost level 100. I got to level 80 this morning. So almost there, man. Got to get to the max level.
Yeah, as people say, there are some players who are dedicated to their craft as well. I think Alex is living up to that name.
Not so much for Apex, maybe for like Destiny or something like
Destiny, which was the other game that you've been playing recently, right? Or doing patch notes on?
Yeah, I've been kind of starting to go through patch notes because they have their new season coming out in a couple weeks or so. So it's kind of just going over what new stuff is going to be happening, how current things are going to be changing. Not only in regards to what new content's going to be coming out, but kind of a lot of just like balancing patches. What weapons are going to be part of the meta, and what stuff's not going to be really as viable anymore for different activities like raids and strikes and crucible specifically and whatnot. So just kind of going over what's going to be the best options to run for that, and seeing what we've got to look forward to in this next season.
As always on the video game scene, I am 10 steps behind everyone else. Most video games and stuff I've been playing is just PUBG Mobile and Brawl Stars on my phone.
Hey, I mean, PUBG is not bad.
Yeah.
Tried on PC, but
yeah.
The most advanced gaming platform I have is my SNES. Still,
yes,
still working. I haven't played it in a while, but I only have like 2 games for it.
I think your phone's probably passed that up, though. Honestly.
Yeah, at this point, it sounds like it.
I don't know. You haven't seen my phone. Is that it? So is that all you got for us this week, Alex?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been up to, brother.
Alrighty. I'll go next this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched the Oscars. I know we did our anti-Oscars episode, but I watched them. They happened. It was a thing. But I had seen, before the Oscars came out, I saw the Best Picture winner, Green Book. So I lucked out. I didn't have to do any catching up after the Oscars, and I think Green Book's fine. It's I don't know, people are getting upset about it, and there's a lot of controversy about is it really a good movie or not. And I watched it. And it's like it's fine. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. It's forgettable. It reminds me of a lot of those movies that are kind of like lightweight movies on racism, where it's like, oh, okay, clap, clap. I guess kind of like I see these movies. I'm like, they're fine. I don't really think they do much to further the debate. I don't think they do a lot of harm either. They're just kind of like cutesy little movies, biopics that come out.
Yeah, I mean,
I liked Mahershala Ali. I liked Viggo Mortensen. I like when Viggo Mortensen folded an entire pizza in half and ate it like a sandwich.
Sacrilege, man.
Sacrilege. What are you talking about? That's the best way to eat a pizza.
A whole pizza in half, though?
Dude, have you ever tried it?
Not a whole pizza, but
an
like
entire pizza. We're talking about like a giant pizza, too.
I mean, it's the ultimate symbol of hunger at that point, if you can eat it whole at one bite. But Joe, to kind of comment a little bit on that, because I'd seen Green Book as well, and I'm kind of along there with you in the same opinion, and I can see why the Oscars went with this movie, as opposed to the other ones. Is, it was the less polarizing film of them all, and it kind of felt like, for everything that was going on, it was the safe bet, as opposed to like the other options that were available. But in my opinion, I thought Viggo Mortensen, Mahershala Ali were great in it as far as acting. So.
Yeah, it was absolutely the safe bet, which I know is disappointing. No, it wasn't the best movie of the year, but since when, like, how often does the best movie of the year actually win Best Picture?
True, that is absolutely true.
Yeah, and I know I'm in the minority of I didn't really care for BlacKkKlansman either. I kind of feel as far as how much I enjoyed the movies for completely different reasons. I put kind of Green Book and BlacKkKlansman at the same level, although I do agree that what I like about BlacKkKlansman, I think, worked a lot better. But there are some other things I disliked about BlacKkKlansman, and it's just I don't know. None of the movies that I love this year got nominated, really. So it's I had no skin in the game. But Green Book's fine, whatever. And another thing I watched was, so I'm working through 1986 in movies this year, and I watched Down and Out in Beverly Hills. Have either of you guys heard of or seen this movie?
No. Can you remind me again who's in it? Because the only thing that's coming to my head when I hear Beverly Hills is Beverly Hills Cops.
Nick Nolte and Richard Dreyfuss.
Okay, well, I was close. Nick Nolte was in 48 Hours, which had Eddie Murphy.
So, oh, wow. Good connection there.
Yeah, so somehow I tied that in.
So Down and Out in Beverly Hills, it's a comedy. Yeah, it's a comedy. It's like a comedy drama from the Bette Midler is also in it. Who she was in Ruthless People, which I watched recently. So she's a great actress, by the way. I hadn't really noticed her in very much because I hadn't really seen very many movies that she'd been in. But seeing her in Ruthless People recently, and now Down and Out in Beverly Hills, makes me think like I kind of want to seek out more of her movies now, because she's a talented comedic actress.
I'd say give Hocus Pocus a try then, if you're into that.
Oh, thanks for reminding me about Hocus Pocus. Never mind. But Down and Out in Beverly Hills is about Nick Nolte is a homeless man living in Beverly Hills, and Richard Dreyfuss plays this rich Beverly Hills guy just kind of living his life. When Nick Nolte gets depressed and tries to drown himself in Richard Dreyfuss's swimming pool, and Richard Dreyfuss saves him and takes him into his house, cleans him up, and it's basically about their relationship between each other. How Nick Nolte has this history of supposedly he came from wealth and he knew rich and famous people, and just over the course of the years he's kind of fallen into poverty. And Richard Dreyfuss, his marriage is struggling with his wife. He's cheating on her with the maid, and his life, he's not happy with the way his life is, even though he has all this wealth. And so it's about them kind of working together and helping each other become better people. But I'm not a fan of this movie. Really, I think I gave it kind of a middling review, but I think on retrospective, I might even rank it even lower. basically, if you sleep with Nick Nolte, he makes your life better.
Wait. So Richard Dreyfuss sleeps with Nick Nolte is what you're saying?
No, but everyone else around.
See, that would have been daring for its time, man.
And he sleeps with every woman in the movie, and it's shown as like, it's like, oh, he's like the magical hobo that comes into your life, sleeps with your wife, and all of a sudden everything's better. It's terrible.
Oh my gosh, why does that remind me of that one? Gosh, what was it? Dane Cook film.
Oh, good luck, Chuck.
It's like a good luck charm for every woman he sleeps with. Like they get hitched after they do him, and he doesn't.
It's pretty bad though. It kind of tries to play it into, he knows what's best for you, and he can talk to you, and he says exactly what you need to hear, but he's wrong. Like, he's not a very good person, but the movie wants to treat him like he is.
I'm kind of wondering how much clout or how much input Nick Nolte had in this film. He probably had a lot of creative decisions going on.
I don't know. I haven't looked into the background of this movie, so I don't know very much about it. I just watched it because it's part of my 1986 marathon, and I didn't like it. So
all right.
Moving on. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to talk about is, so I've been showing my 3-year-old daughter a few of the some movies that I grew up with as a kid. And so I showed her Babe recently. I've shown her Homeward Bound a few weeks ago. But most recently, I showed her The Prince of Egypt.
Wow.
You guys remember this movie?
Yeah, that kind of seems a little early to be introducing her to that film.
That's fine. She was fine. Actually, you know what's interesting is that I remember being a kid, I was frightened of the scene where Moses has the dream of the hieroglyphs coming to life.
Mm-hmm.
She was fine, totally unfazed throughout that scene. But she's able to follow kind of the basic idea of what's going on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have to admit, it is a gorgeous film. I think even when it first came out, like, people were just impressed with just the animation. Like, this was a film that was kind of upping Disney as far as like quality. And like, this was the first time DreamWorks was like, oh yeah, we have some chops, we can show you Disney.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful movie, guys. This movie should be in the conversation of greatest animated movies of all time. Like, it's up there with the best of Disney stuff, and I'm kind of sad that it's fallen into relative obscurity, because if you ask anybody about what they think about The Prince of Egypt, 9 times out of 10 they'll tell you that they absolutely love it. But nobody talks about it today.
It's not one that's like in a lot of conversation nowadays, because this was coming out at the time, like, 2D was like leaving the scene and 3D was coming on as like, this is the standard. Like, this was the time when, like, Shrek, as well as like, I remember that movie Ant Z when it came out with
Ants. Oh my gosh.
And Pixar as well.
Oh yeah.
And Pixar was like a huge thing that was happening at this point. So it was kind of started to dominate it. So yeah, I can see why it's like not the big topic of conversation, because I don't know. I remember when I saw that film, Joe, just to kind of insert this, is I kind of thought this would have been like another renaissance for, the 2D animation movement. And then sadly, after that, we only got like a couple more years before everyone went to CGI.
Well, yeah, and DreamWorks went straight to Shrek after that, and we know where they went after that. But it's, I don't know. It's just it disappoints me that this movie doesn't get more recognition.
Yeah,
for its contributions to animated film history, because I think it's absolutely. I mean, not just the animation, because it is a gorgeous movie, but the music is phenomenal.
Yeah,
the
story's up on par as far as like a good just adaptation of a biblical story.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about the story is that we've seen this story told many times on movies before, and
but on the scale of showing the Pharaoh and Moses as like two illegitimate brothers going through this struggle.
Yeah, their relationship is what makes this movie, because they make Ramses into a very sympathetic character. Not sympathetic enough that you're rooting for him, but it humanizes him to the degree that you get where this guy's coming from. And one of my favorite scenes regarding him, and something that I hadn't noticed before, was when he makes a reference to something his father had told him earlier about how he doesn't want his son to be the weak link in the chain. And that kind of drives at what's motivating him to not back down, is that he does not want to be the weak link in the chain. He wants to live up to his father's ambitions. I love that shot where you see his father's statue is in the background of a shot while he's standing next to it, and you kind of see their profiles together. And it's for him, it's all about legacy and power and not being weak. And Moses, on the other hand, has gone through a complete change
Yeah, a
of
huge
demeanor
transformation from the
and
beginning of
faith
the
and
film.
everything, and so they're coming at each other from clashing ideologies, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, I have to admit, like the team behind this, they really knew exactly what they were doing with every single frame, like in communicating that, and that's something that it's like I don't want to say like a lot of animated films aren't taking that kind of investment. I mean, Disney's still doing it, Pixar is still doing it immensely well, but it's like I remember quite a few films that were coming out being produced by Disney at the time were just not putting that level of detail and attention to it. A couple of things that come to my mind were like Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet, which were really interesting concept movies, but you look
Mhm.
at the visual aspect of it, it's like it's kind of hard to watch. Where you watch something like Prince of Egypt, it's like it's poetic. It's they're trying to make this transcend all like nations, all different like levels of just communication, and it's something like I think today. You're right, Joe. We're not talking about enough, but I feel like there is a following that's growing, and who knows, maybe in 10 years. We might witness a Blu-ray revival. Maybe Crichton Collection might admit it as one of the classics. We'll have
Yeah,
to
well,
see.
actually, one of the reasons that I watched it recently is because it was released on Blu-ray for the first time
Yes.
last year, late last year, and I finally just picked it up because it's only like $8 at Best Buy. And yeah, everybody out there, I say just go out, get the Blu-ray. We need
Mhm.
this movie to come back into the public spotlight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I watched
Mhm.
this past week. So I guess my top recommendation out of those three would be Prince of Egypt. Absolutely. Nate, what have you got for us?
Okay, well, one of the movies I actually watched this past week, which just came out, was the last installment of the How to Train Your Dragon series, The Hidden World.
Oh, what number are they on now?
This is number 3 as far as the movie series. However,
Oh, okay.
there's the Netflix series as well that they got going on.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking about. I thought they were on like number 4 or something like that, but yeah. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, they've had like a couple like mini special like spin-offs, but as far as like a feature release, like this was their third installment. What can I say? It's just gorgeous. Going back to, DreamWorks just knowing their audience with this, like they really make flight sequences epic and just very engaging. Um, and with this one, it's obviously I'm assuming and I'm hoping this is the last feature film that they do, and they don't do what Toy Story is doing now and bringing back a fourth movie,
Yeah.
because I think this works as a trilogy. Yeah, but as far as a movie goes, it's kind of weird with this series because Joe, I think a while ago I saw how the second movie had some issues with it, but looking at this movie, I probably have to say I don't have as many issues now with the second movie as I kind of do with this one. And I think the reason why is, the biggest problem I always kind of see with all these How to Train Your Dragon films is they never have a villain who is up to par with like what the first movie, and what made it so great was there really wasn't a villain, just misguided characters. There was, Hiccup's father who represented the antagonist of this whole that story. And really it was more about changing his perspective. Whereas in the other movies, it was just dead set on just having this, very two-dimensional villain, and they just want to kill dragons.
Yeah, it's just here's the good guy, here's the bad guy.
Yeah,
Fight.
and unfortunately, in that kind of case, it's like there's not really like a very thought-provoking story on what it's trying to do. And I feel like that's been the problem with a lot of the How to Train Your Dragon movies, and even like spin-offs from there, is they never really were able to capture that kind of antagonism again. Now for this movie, it's not bad. Like there's some gorgeous sequences, like the Hidden World. It's just, I have to say, I didn't think anyone could top James Cameron's Avatar, but this movie pulled it off. There's that sequence when they actually go into the Hidden World, and it is just mind blowing. Like I just remember like drooling because it was like, it's so beautiful. But the ending was actually, I'd say it was satisfying. I kind of had a feeling they were going that direction. And I don't know. I think there's some parts of the ending that I liked. Won't spoil anything, but I think the overall, it's like I said, it's hard to top the first movie. It's hard to top, being introduced to Hiccup and Toothless and these characters for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think since then, it's just more of like, oh, how many more dragons that we can show, and trying to make it a family element. But yeah, I'd say, for anyone who's has a chance to go see it in theaters, go check it out.
So, fun fact: the
Mhm.
the first How to Train Your Dragon was mine and Katie's first date movie.
Oh,
Oh, really?
that's right. Yeah, I keep forgetting that's the one that you keep saying like, oh yeah, first date movie.
Yeah,
Back in
and
2010.
I haven't seen the third one. I've seen the second one. I remember when that
Mhm.
came out. I'll be honest. I don't really have a very close connection to these movies. I think they're fine. I think they're beautiful, well done movies, and I enjoy them.
Yeah.
But they're not the sort of thing where I think on it and say like, oh, I need to watch that right now, or I need to watch the
Exactly,
new. I mean, for instance, the new one. I'm really unmotivated to go see the new one, and it's not because I think it looks bad. I think it looks fine. It's just there are other things out there that excite me more in theaters now anyway. So I'll probably catch it on Netflix when it comes out.
One thing
But
I will say this, Joe, is I think the stuff in this movie, just knowing you, is I think you'll actually enjoy it a lot more. I think there's a lot more very, very tender moments between family that I think I have a feeling that you might actually resonate a lot more with. I felt myself was kind of resonating a lot with it. So I think on that level, they were able to bring their A game to the table. But as far as like, story and like, a good engaging villain, they tried, F. Murphy Abraham, he does a good job, but it's like it's not a memorable villain. But I think like the stuff that you would like, Joe, it'll stand out the most. So I'd say maybe check it out in theaters while you can.
on a scale of the seventh continent at the bottom to Train to Busan at the top, we'll see how it hits me for family feels.
I think we should just always bring that scale or that radar back, like his Michael Haneke radar level.
This is my yeah. On a scale of the seventh continent to Train to Busan, how did this hit me in the feels regarding family?
I feel like maybe, Joe, you're kind of setting up for a Michael Haneke marathon for us to kind of have to watch.
Oh, I would be all in on that. Train to Busan isn't a Michael Haneke movie. Seventh Continent is though.
Yeah.
Let's just say, family.
Family. Everyone does families.
The most Michael Haneke family movie.
On a side note, on the other note, the other film I actually went and saw was the Lego Movie 2, the second part.
Oh, I need to see this one. I actually do really want to see this one.
And this is one I'm going to say. I was not expecting them to amp up their A game and top the first movie, but this movie does. Everyone I know who has seen this movie says it is better than the first one, which I thought that's sacrilegious.
The first one was so good.
But this one goes even further, and it is freaking amazing. The jokes are great. The jokes get a lot more meta. Joe, I think you would love this. I don't want to spoil it for you, but let's just say there's a joke in it, a running gag that involves one of your favorite movies, and I think you would get the best laugh out of it. I know I did. And it's just like there's like as everything that was great about the first movie, they amplify it 10 times. Like the end credit song is even better in this one. I think they bring back the Lonely Island again, who do it, and they go all out with it. And even just like, even though Will Ferrell's like, he's not like in it, his voice is here and there. There's a funny little joke in there about him being off screen and how he still has a presence. And I think Phil Lord and Chris Miller like just put a little bit of jab in that. And that, I don't know. I think it's kind of funny. Like, everyone's going to, I doubt people are going to remember them for like, being kicked off of the Han Solo movie project, because I think since then they've done the Spider-Man Into the Spideyverse. They've done this movie. And so they're just proving time and time again, like, hey, they're good at what they do. When they know what they're doing, they do it well, and they get the right people behind it. So I think this was a fun movie. So I check it out and I recommend it.
Here's a question regarding the Lego movies. Have you guys seen the Lego Ninjago movie or Lego Batman movie?
I saw the Batman one. The Batman one was hilarious, only because like you keep forgetting, oh yeah, this is owned by Warner Brothers, so they can go to town with these properties, with Harry Potter, all their DC properties, and even just the Batman. Like there's a great joke in there. I remember falling over laughing with it. But it's like I didn't see the Ninjago one or the.
Okay. The only reason I saw the Ninjago one was because Jackie Chan is in it, and I love Jackie Chan so much.
Yeah, and I feel like kind of like how there's jokes in that referencing Jackie Chan movies for those who really are aware of it. There's a lot of that in this movie for people who are aware of it, and so I think, Joe, you would actually get a blast of this. So just take Kateri and Katie. I think all of you would have.
Awesome. I'll absolutely have to go see it. Kateri actually hasn't been to the movie theater yet, so we'll have to see what her first movie is.
It needs to have too much context of the first one to get.
Well, she's seen the first one. We have
it. Well, then
we have it here, so it's just been a while.
Oh yeah. Well, I'd say just go ahead and take her.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, with that, let's go ahead and move into our main discussion, which is Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Jiro Dreams of Sushi is a documentary on 85-year-old sushi master Jiro Ono, his renowned Tokyo restaurant, and his relationship with his son and eventual heir Yoshikazu. So, Alex, tell us, why did you choose this movie?
Well, I've had it on my list of movies to watch for quite a while now. Like a while back, 'cause I think I started getting like documentaries and whatnot, and I think that was around the time or just shortly after that came out. So it was just like I've had it on my list forever. I've wanted to watch it for a long time. I couldn't really think of anything else to really watch, so I was just like, let's just go with that, just because I know that's going to be like I've heard nothing but good things about it. So I'm like, that's going to be a sure bet for like a good movie to watch. Plus, I watch like a lot of like YouTube videos and like sushi and stuff like that. So I was like, hey, it's perfect.
So, Nate, had you seen or heard of this movie before?
For someone had mentioned it to me a while ago. No, and this was my first time actually ever hearing about this. Yeah, so this was my first time seeing this.
I hadn't seen this, but I had heard of it because do you guys know about the TV show Documentary Now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right,
Where,
with Fred Armisen and
and
Bill
Bill
Hader.
Yeah, where they basically parody all these famous documentaries that exist out there, and I guess this was one of them that they parody, right?
It is. So they made an episode of Documentary Now. Documentary Now is each episode parodies a very specific documentary. And they made an episode called Juan Loves Chicken and Rice that parodies Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Now, I had never seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi, but I've seen their parody, Juan Loves Chicken and Rice, and it's one of my favorite episodes of Documentary Now. In fact, I've seen it multiple times.
So Joe went in fully prepared and knowing what to expect with this one.
I'm not gonna lie, that might have colored the way I watched this movie, because I watched this movie and I just start laughing at scenes because I just remember like, oh, that's why they made fun of this.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Well, for instance, there's a scene where he shows them going to the fish market. And the guy at the fish market says that, oh, I only choose the best cuts of fish, and sometimes they don't even have any cuts of fish that match what I'm looking for. So I just come away with nothing sometimes at the end of the day. I was thinking about it because in the Documentary Now episode, you know, this little Mexican farmer, and he's goes out every morning to catch the chicken that he's going to cook for the day. He says, "Oh, I'm giving 5 minutes to catch the chicken. If I can't catch it, then that chicken was meant to live, and I'm not going to cook it today."
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
it's great.
Wow.
Anyway, so that is my only connection related to this movie, and I'm glad that I was finally able to see it and appreciate that episode more now.
I'm actually kind of glad that was it, because I had a feeling I was worried that you were gonna hijack this talk and talk more about the parody.
This is now a Documentary Now review.
Oh, great!
Exactly. So go see Documentary Now, people.
All right,
that episode specifically,
just that one. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So Alex, kick us off. What do you want to talk about with Jiro Dreams of Sushi? What struck you about this movie?
So one of the things that I kind of wanted to go over with the documentary, one thing that kind of really struck me throughout the whole thing is really specifically just the dedication of Jiro, and specifically the dedication to one thing his entire life. Like his entire life is just spent, you know, trying to master making sushi. That's it. Like he's done nothing else, starting at I think it was like before he was even like a teenager.
He was like 14, I believe, is when he kind of said, like, he started going into that. Actually, Joe, when did they? Because you just recently watched this, like, as of today, before we were recording. So, do you remember how old he said he was?
Oh, no, I don't remember. I do remember when he was really young. He was saying he had a tough time with his parents, but I don't remember at what age he got into sushi making specifically.
Yeah, I mean, he was talking. Yeah, same. But he was talking about how he had to, at a young age, go into trying to figure out, trying to make him a living, honestly, at such a young age, and just that's what he picked. That's just what he went with, and so that's just what he's stuck with.
Well, that's what interests me about this guy, is that he found something that he enjoyed doing and just kind of stuck with it and became a pro at it. And it's not just his dedication to it, but his love of the dedication to it. How he loves
Yeah.
to do the same things over and over again. He loves spending 40 minutes just massaging an octopus. And he
Yeah.
loves doing that every single day. He loves the routine, and it's the sort of thing that I think would drive most people crazy, and most people would want to see something change in their job and
Absolutely.
evolve.
Yeah.
And he loves the fact that it's the same every single time. It's the same hard, monotonous work, and he looks forward to it. Like, he actively
Yeah.
looks forward to it.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the food critic that was in the film talking about him mentioned, yeah, even on his days off, even on his holidays, he's just looking forward to going back to work. He doesn't like holidays because he just wants to be at work. Crazy that this is all he's done and this is still all he wants to do, but it's
Mhm.
it's admirable as well in the
Yeah.
same breath.
And not only that, but there's people in his life who admire him for that.
Mhm.
I think in the movie it talks about this term. They call it a shokunin, who is someone who repeats the same thing every day and is dedicated to it. And they kind of say he is the personification of that word when it comes to sushi. And one thing
Mhm.
I kind of took away from this, and this was actually something I kind of didn't really consider this, but there are people in life who actually represent the perfection of the art of something. And
Mhm.
usually, whether they're deceased, like for example, like Da Vinci when it comes to art, just the mechanics and math. Um, certain scientists like Albert Einstein, people look to him as like this is the perfection of science.
Mhm.
It's very rare when you actually get to say this man is this man represents the art of sushi and him still being alive. Like this guy's 85, and he's still
And
breaking grounds with
that
sushi.
and that was at the time of the shooting of the documentary. I think he's 93 now.
90, and he's still alive and kicking. And it's kind of like, you guys are mentioning this, like, yeah, this idea that pursuing excellence is a lifelong journey. And one thing that I remember him saying is he's never done pushing the boundaries of sushi. Like, you kind of think about it, like, how much further can you go with sushi? And yet he's always saying, like, there's always more room to perfect, grow, evolve. And that's something just I think is to admire as a true artist or a true representation of what the art of something should be is never satisfied with just the way things are. They always are trying to explore new things. And I think that's one thing that this documentary did very well in capturing that.
Yeah, an interesting thing too is he was talking about how doesn't he does just sushi, that's it.
Mhm.
And he doesn't do, like, really weird or new things with it.
No.
It's just doing very simply sushi,
Mhm.
but just doing it as best as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Just perfecting
Mhm.
every single little thing about it, and maybe doing it creating it in new ways, but you're still ending up with, like, the same kind
そ
of
の人
end
たちよ
product
りう
that
ち
he's
の子
going
供
for.
の方が厳しく育てていました。これは将来のためにやってることで、意地悪くやってるわけでもありません。これはね、私は最初から考えてること。私が例えばここでいなくなったとしても、そのまま続けてずっといけると思いますし。
Yeah, and that kind of brings me into the probably the most eye-catching thing about this movie for me was the first thing that I noticed was the way it was shot, because this is a
Mhm.
beautiful looking movie.
It
Oh, yeah.
is. Yeah. I mean, it kind of feels like it was kind of shot like on a very low budget, like, still something that's like a really good high-end camera, but they didn't like, go out with like lighting it. They just used the natural lighting around it. But yeah, it's gorgeous.
Holy
Yeah.
shit, guys.
What?
All right, just now on my phone, I was looking up because I was curious about the director of this movie.
Mhm. Oh my
Without
God.
looking it up, can you guys guess one other movie that he's made since this came out?
Oh, what did he do?
Do you guys remember The Lazarus Effect?
Yes, I do remember that because you had the freaking poster for
Yep,
one.
the Olivia Wilde, Mark Duplass movie. He
Yep.
made that, guys. That's what
Yeah,
he
I
went on to
remember
do.
you actually held that poster in one of the films that we were doing way, way back when we were shooting Film Illiterates.
What the heck?
Oh
I
my
remember
gosh.
that.
I just want to know, how do you go from this movie to Lazarus Effect? Yeah. Anyway, this is an absolutely beautiful movie. It's fascinating. Just, I mean, he really makes use of the shallow depth of field. Most of the movie, almost the entire movie, takes place within pretty much one small location, which
Mhm.
is the restaurant, and it's a
Yeah.
tiny little restaurant.
It's very
Yeah,
tiny.
you would think that, like, with how famous he is and with, like, people coming from all over the world to come to his restaurant with like the Michelin stars that he has,
Mhm.
that it would be some like really huge, lavish restaurant. No,
Yeah.
it's in a Subway.
Yeah,
It's just a little small place.
and at the same time, one thing I kind of took away from that is this idea, like, I think everyone has an idea of like what a sushi restaurant should look like a high class restaurant like that. At the same time, it's like if he's an artist making, great stuff, he should work in a space that is just fitting for him. And sometimes that
Mhm.
could be like a sushi restaurant in a Subway. And I like how it kind of showed that and that he loves that and he wouldn't want to trade that for anything bigger or better.
Mhm.
But just looking at that space from, I mean, thinking about it from a filmmaking perspective,
Yeah.
how many ways can you shoot that location? How
I
many different
know.
angles? You got to feel so limited in there, but he finds ways to keep it interesting, just
Yeah.
visually.
I think
Yeah.
one of the things I kind of took away from it's like it kind of also because it's such a limiting space, they're able to capture like how these, workers, like how Jiro-san, sorry, Jiro, is that
Sure.
good? How Jiro's son has to kind of go outside to fan the nori, every single day. And
Yeah.
and just like not do that in the restaurant. And it's like, yeah, they're limited with that space, but this is part of their routine. This is part of their daily
I
grind.
wonder if you went in there and like asked for like sushi to go, what he would say.
Well, there's actually a scene. There's
Yeah.
a scene in there where actually someone just wanders in. He's like, "Hi, can I get some sushi here?" And they say, "No, you have to book in almost like was it 6 months in advance?"
I
Oh, that's
was
right. That's right.
pretty much, yeah, or
Yeah,
something like
3
that.
months because
Yeah.
like, and that's actually something I want to point out. It's like when I heard that, it's like, "Whoa, it costs that much to eat sushi at this place?"
Yeah, and he's like, "Do you guys do like any sort of like appetizers or any other food?" He's like, "No, just sushi. No,
Yeah,
just sushi."
but and this was actually something very interesting. I wasn't expecting the documentary to go in this direction. Sorry, I'm hijacking this, but I want to
Sure.
point this out is it gave this reality of what sushi really should be. I think a lot of people who, have this luxury of living, think, oh, I can have sushi every day. But something that Jiro and his son actually really point out is sushi is a delicacy, it's a rarity. And to way to actually get the perfection of the food is when you don't do it every single day, but you get the best quality of fish, you get the best quality of the rice, you get the best quality of the nori.
Mhm.
And it gave this idea of like sushi is only really appreciated when it's not as accessible as it is today for a lot of people. And so that was an interesting theme that it was kind of addressing. I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way.
いいネタを入れていい仕事をするのが職人で、あと儲かろうが儲からないがあまりそれは気にしない。
Alex, do you want to talk about the music?
Yeah, the music was kind of struck me as well. Mostly because I mean, I obviously just liked it a lot, but they used a song I really like by the composer Max Richter.
On the Nature of Daylight.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, it's such a good song. I've listened to it so much. I was
Mhm.
super surprised to find it in the film. But the music is so nice, and it's interesting too that there isn't a score that's composed for it. It's just using pre-existing
Mhm.
works, some by Max Richter. There's a lot of Philip Glass in
Yeah, a
there.
lot of postmodern, like, like contemporary stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of yeah, it just worked really well, and I like that they didn't go with a score.
Mhm.
They with their own like original score for it, because depending on how much the budget would, it might turn out really well, but it could always end up with something that's just kind of mediocre. So
Mhm.
I think it wasn't a bad idea going for already like established composers and established works to highlight the different points in the movie.
Mhm.
While it was all kind of mostly similar genres, there was different little turns and influences here and there that it showed during different scenes and whatnot. But just like going back to talking about the cinematography and coupling that with the music, just the amazing, beautiful shots
Mhm.
of just like just going over like just the single sushi piece as Jiro
Mhm.
puts it down on the plate, and just completely that with the music.
Mhm.
Oh, so
Actually,
nice.
yeah, and that kind of captures the art of this kind of perfection. And
Mhm.
I actually, before this movie, I didn't realize that you had to actually have sushi right as it's served. I think everyone, makes this joke like, "Oh, day old sushi," and
Yeah.
don't want to get sick of that. But really, surprisingly, you're supposed to enjoy sushi as soon as it's served. Like any second or any other minute longer it waits, it's going to destroy that flavor. And what I mean by flavor is like I guess there's this sensation that's created by a combination of flavors. They talk about this in the film. Umami is what they call it.
Umami.
Umami, yeah, and it's basically that right combination of the right kind of fish with the rice and how it's prepared, how it's served, that you're really trying to strive for sushi.
だからうまみっていうのはそのマグロがうまいからうまみじゃなくて、それを酢飯と一緒に食べる、醤油をつける、その方がうまみが出るという。
And so you're right. It's kind of like treating every little movement, every little, frame as like a piece of art. You're right. The music and the cinematography kind of couple really well with that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a positive or detriment to the movie that I didn't really notice the soundtrack all that much.
Yeah.
All I remember about it is that it paired with the visuals very well. The music felt like it was in service of the visuals, which I mean, it isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's kind of like, one of the best ways to tell good editing is when you don't notice the editing or when you don't notice the sound mixing, in the same way, in some movies, you could say if you don't notice the soundtrack, that could be a good thing because it means it's not standing out in a negative way.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd argue that that's a good thing, honestly, that if you don't notice the score. I mean, I look for it specifically, and especially with recognizing one of the pieces that was used, it made me pay attention to it a lot more. But it's not necessarily what you'd expect. I mean, the entire film is very, very Japanese. I mean, there's no, as far as I can remember, there's like no English that's spoken in the entire film at all. It's all subtitled. It's all entirely in Japan. So you'd expect it maybe a little bit more kind of traditional Japanese, music, but yeah, they just went straight for kind of a more Western, modern classical.
It worked.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like don't destroy something if it's working. It's like just go with it. Sometimes there's happy little accidents, as Bob Ross says. We're just gonna put happy little trees, happy little Philip Glass everywhere.
Hey Nate, one guess. When I think Philip Glass movie soundtrack, what is the first movie I think of?
I forget the name of that documentary, but it's the one that is nothing but stock footage.
Yep. Koyanis Katsi.
Yep. Okay. I that name keeps always slipping my mind.
Wait. I think okay. Yeah.
It's one that basically the
it's
world.
Stock footage, the movie.
It's stock footage movie. It's like
but the music though.
Yeah.
The music's great.
Shutterstock the movie. It's Shutterstock the movie when you think about it.
The last thing I want to touch on here, and I'll probably have a lot more to say about this actually, is about the relationship between Jiro and his sons and about legacy and passing on his knowledge of sushi making.
Yeah.
Now, in the movie, it's hinted at there's not really tension, but I don't know, a little bit of tension between the sons and the father, and what one of the sons I think goes on to start his own restaurant separate from the family. And I was a lot more interested, honestly, in the first half of the movie than the second half, because the first half dealt with the father and the sons and what they were doing, and about how one of them had to stay with the father to continue the restaurant after the father dies inevitably, and the other son went off and did his own thing with his own restaurant. But that's all tidied up fairly early on, of just kind of like, they're like, we kind of went and did our own things, and then the movie moved on. But in the documentary now episode, they really play up the drama, because they do a similar thing where one of the sons goes off and starts his own restaurant, and the father disowns the son, and it becomes this whole big comedic thing,
right?
Which obviously played up for dramatic comedy. But I will say, even though it was a parody, I was more invested in, quote unquote, the characters of that show than the quote unquote characters of this documentary. Now, I don't mean to say that they should have played up drama to make it more interesting, but I think it's telling that I was interested in hearing more about the relationship between the men in this family, and I actually wanted to know more about how they differed, because we hear a lot about how they're the same and how they try to follow in Jiro's footsteps. But I was interested in hearing more about that, going deeper, and I felt like the second half of the movie suffered a little bit for myself, because it just kind of sidelined all that and just focused on Jiro as a craftsman, which is fascinating, but it can't hold up the length of a feature movie. I almost
Mhm.
felt like the second half of the movie worked better as a short film, and I was more interested in the first half as a feature length
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, and I want to actually kind of continue on that conversation because you do mention this. There is a little bit of tension between Jiro and his son in
Hmm.
this, especially the one who's still there, because they're basically throughout the whole film they're foreshadowing that Jiro's not going to live much longer. Soon his son's going to have to take over this business, and when you already have someone who is the perfection of the art, where do you go from there? How do you continue pursuing that? And I
Yeah.
think there's this. Remember, like they were talking about the son. Like I think the son's just dealing with a lot of pressure of, is he going to be able to continue sushi the way his father did, where they're
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries more than he can, or is it going to kind of stagnate after that? And that's I think one of the biggest worries. And I sense that between their dynamic. There's this thing where Jiro is like expecting his son to do almost to imitate him in a way. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like at that point, it's like, well, are you trying to be your own sushi chef, or are you just trying to be like me? And it's very interesting how they're kind of portraying that, but not so much like Joe, as you mentioned, not amping up on the drama, but it's communicated and you kind of feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very can be very tangibly felt.
Mhm.
It was also mentioned for Chihiro's eldest son to really be able to live up to his father's legacy. He can't just he can't just get to the same level where he was,
Mhm.
because if all he does is just continue with what Jiro has already done, just continuing the same and just keeping that same level of perfectionism, he's his own legacy is not going to hold up. He's
Mhm.
not going to be able to live up. He would need to far surpass his
Mhm.
his father in order to really be able to hold his own legacy.
Yeah. And there's almost like this fear of kind of like, can he or does he want to? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. That was a really interesting kind of dynamic that I was not expecting at all
Hmm.
in the film. That was kind of one of the main points of interest for me, honestly,
Hmm.
is just whether or not he's going to be able to continue this.
If anything, the only thing I was hoping that the son would do is just do something that makes him happy with the craft. Because here's the thing,
Yeah.
happiness is going to come to people in different ways. And if you're living up to someone else's happiness and not your own dream, then what's the point of living? And I think if anything, Jaro, he's living his dream. He's living in his happiness of doing what he's doing. But sometimes it's like, is that expected then of everyone else to follow it? It's an interesting conversation because it's like, if you want to pursue that kind of level of excellence, you have to kind of follow in his footsteps. But
Yeah.
at some point, you do have to kind of branch off and do your own thing. And it's the question that I think we're always asking ourselves is, when do
Hmm.
we stop following the master and become our own master?
And I think that for me is one of the shortcomings of this movie
Hmm.
because I'm fascinated by all that, but I feel like the movie didn't really dive into that. I wanted to know more about the son who is going to run the restaurant after Jiro
Hmm.
dies. I wanted to know more about his thought process behind this. We know that he's trying to follow in his father's footsteps and he's accepted his role as the son who must continue this. But I
Hmm.
wanted to know, like, is this what he really wants to? How did he get into this? Is what is his thought process behind uh evolving?
Hmm.
Is he going to continue doing the restaurant exactly as his father did it? And I feel like the movie didn't really dive into that because as soon as we were getting to a point where we would follow that,
Yeah.
all of a sudden
Okay.
we start focusing more on Jiro in the second half, which makes sense if you're making Jiro the main
Yeah.
character of the movie. He is the focus of the movie, and he is a craftsman that
Hmm.
is really quite astounding. And I was interested in everything about him. But when you focus so much on the relationships in the first half, and then the second half you focus only on Jiro,
Hmm.
I'm still invested in finding out more about the son's relationships to the father,
Hmm.
but all we're focusing now on is, oh, look how good Jiro is at making sushi. Look how wonderful and delicious the
Yeah.
sushi is. Look at how he makes the sushi. Here's lots
Right.
of slow-mo shots of the sushi.
Well, I mean, it is it's kind of setting it up. It's setting it up in that here's talking about the dynamic between Jiro and his eldest son, and how as the son's going to have to take over the sushi business, have
Mhm.
to kind of live up to what Jiro has done.
Mhm.
And then we get to see everything that Jiro does
Yeah.
and how well he does it and why he's considered such a master at what he does.
I'm almost kind of wondering if there's any behind the scenes footage of this documentary of stuff that they could not include in this documentary. Maybe because maybe they did ask those questions of, hey, what was it like working for Jiro? Was he ever hard on you guys? And they kind of shy away from that. But I'm actually wondering if there's actually any footage, interview footage, or actually B-roll where we actually kind of see. I don't want to say like the pleasant side of Jiro, but when he's actually having to bring down the rod of disciplining his son or, the other chefs. Like we only get like a small glimpse of it, but you're
Mhm.
right. I'm wondering if them kind of like compensating that to show, how great Jiro is like we're more forgiving than of, if he had to be hard on his sons or something like that because they kept talking about it, but we never really kind of saw it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they did ask the question, how was it? I think.
And maybe that's stuff that they just said, omit this from the documentary. We don't want to show this.
Well, no, they did ask the question, and
Oh yeah.
it wasn't the
Oh, yeah.
documentary talking about. I think it was talking to both of his sons and
Mhm.
how it was, growing up with Jiro as their dad
Mhm.
and kind of learning the craft of sushi. And I think, yeah, pretty much as far as I can remember, they both said it. It was, yeah, it was definitely hard. Jiro's kind of a hard teacher
Mhm.
to work with,
Mhm.
but they learned how to do it right.
Yeah. And I think if anything, so yeah, Joe, I'm not sure like we would kind of like seeing a lot more of that, uh, being a little bit more satisfying, I guess, for that second half.
I don't think necessarily seeing more of that would have been satisfying. I don't necessarily want more drama. I am here to see how Jiro do his thing, and I did want to see that, and I didn't necessarily want to spice things up with more drama. But I don't think just seeing Jiro do his thing
Mhm.
can hold the weight of a feature movie. And I
Yeah.
think maybe even something as simple as flopping the two halves of the movie, opening with a first half of a movie of showing off Jiro the
Mhm.
master, and then the second half going into his family and his past and showing us where he came from and
Yeah.
showing us where he hopes this will go
Mhm.
afterwards. I think putting all that in the second half probably would have strengthened the movie. But what do I know? I wasn't in the editing room for that. As far as I know, they may have tried doing that. It didn't work as well.
Yeah.
I
I
mean, they
just don't think that the amount of material that they spend on Jiro making sushi, I don't think that holds the weight of the amount of time that is given. I think that stuff would have been better fitted to a short film or
Mhm.
at least restructured some way within the documentary.
They did come back around to more of the talking about the son in the later half of the movie, kind of especially going towards when he's going out to like the market and whatnot,
Mhm.
because
Did
it
anyone
is
find that
following.
marketing scene kind of fascinating? Like,
Oh
like
yeah.
they're in the warehouse actually inspecting the tuna, and then they suddenly go into a bell chant, and I'm like, "What is going
Yeah.
on?" But it was fascinating because it's like what you're witnessing here is not necessarily just like, well, yes, it is daily business, but they treat it as like a tradition, a routine, and there's
Hmm.
something sacred about that. Like they're not just getting tuna and just flopping it and then cutting it up, which is what they are doing, but there's this process, there's this this way of life. And so I thought that was like something kind of interesting, and they didn't give a lot of explanation of why that.
Yeah, I guess that's just the way it's done.
But I liked
But
it that way. I
oh
liked it.
yeah,
Yeah, you didn't have to get too much into it. It was just a nice little slice of life moment where you kind of saw the way it is over there, and it just gives you great perspective.
I
yeah.
want to go to that market so badly, by the way.
Yeah, I love how they use like the fisheye lens for
Mhm.
that part or some of the parts too. That's so cool.
It would have been.
It looked amazing and yeah,
Yeah.
pun intended, I guess. But
Honestly, Joe, I think maybe you would have wanted to go there just to put your hands in the squid tank and just hold up a squid or something like that.
I just want to massage a squid for 40 minutes.
Oh yes, that would just thrill you, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
really get you going.
There you go.
All right. Let's close this review off with star ratings and final thoughts. So, Alex, out of 5 stars, what would you rate this movie and what were your final thoughts?
I'd give it a 4.
Mhm.
Um, I really enjoyed it. every bit, every minute of it was interesting. The documentary kind of flew by, honestly. So much about it was good. The cinematography, the music, as we talked about and have gone over. I actually did like what they did show of kind of the relationship between Jiro and his sons. For me, that actually worked out really well, and I as much as I would like to see even more, just to get into more of the to get more of the documentary, um, I'm satisfied with what they did show.
Mhm.
I think it worked out well. I think it worked for what I wanted it to be, and it ended up being kind of more than I really expected. So I'd say I'd absolutely recommend this if you want a really well put together, very beautifully shot, very interesting documentary that poses a lot of like really interesting questions kind of about what you want to do with your life.
Mhm.
This is a really good one to go for.
So I would give the movie 3 stars out of 5. I think it's a very good documentary. It doesn't jump into great for me. Maybe bordering on 3.5 stars up there. I I think it's shot very well. I think the way they tell the story is fitting to the art that they're showing off. I think the art of filmmaking shows off the art of sushi making extraordinarily. It made me hungry for sushi while watching it. I was fascinated the by Jiro as a character in the documentary. Actually, it's interesting. I want to see more documentaries showcasing craftsmen in very specific areas and showing them working at their peak potential, because that's what kind of fascinated me about this guy, is that he's just kind of working out of this little restaurant. I mean, it's an expensive restaurant, but just kind of this little restaurant out of the way, and you would walk in and you wouldn't think it was some super fancy place, you know.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of there doing his thing, and I would love the dedication of Jiro to his craft, and just the mindset that this guy has to get into to love his work, really love the repetition of his work. I do think that the second half doesn't hold my interest as much. There was a certain point where I was like, "Yep, we're seeing him prepare sushi one more time. That still looks good. Let's keep going." And I think part of that may have been the location also, because we talked earlier about how wonderfully director David Gelb shot this one tiny location that he must have been very limited in, and he shoots the hell out of it.
Yeah.
But there are only so many ways that you can shoot a location like that. And at a certain point, I started thinking, yeah, I've seen this counter probably about 500 times by now, with delicious sushi being put on it.
Yeah.
What else you got? But overall, I think it's a very good documentary. Absolutely worth checking out.
I kind of in between with both of you guys. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of stars, and I know my star system this time after not giving it 6 stars like I did last time. I've learned that. But yeah, I'd say I gave it a 3.5 just because you guys are hitting at a lot of stuff I liked about it, the way it was shot, the way it was composed, the way it's crafted. Joe, I'm on the same boat as you are, where I kind of felt the second half did drag out. And I think the biggest thing going in for anyone who's interested in seeing this is be very patient with this movie, because there's not a lot of action. There's not a lot of, as Joe mentions, there's not a lot of drama that's happening. You have to really immerse yourself with it and be patient with it. And for, I think, a lot of people that may not be their cup of tea, this would be very, very hard to sit through. I kind of was actually at some point thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is still kind of going on. And I still had to remind myself, really, pay attention to what's going on, because you're experiencing something at this. The one thing I wanted to actually talk about, which I was not expecting about this movie, is it's kind of it's asking, there's a bit of a call to action at the end, where it's really asking people, the craft of sushi is great, but don't have it so excessively as we do today. Like they're mentioning, quality of fish is diminishing because the best fish are being hunted and poached all the time. And so it's almost kind of like being an environmental call to action, like don't eat so much sushi, but still eat sushi. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting thing that you guys wedged in there. Let's get back to Jiro.
Yeah, I think it was, I yeah, that was kind of came out of nowhere for me.
Well, but I had a feeling like they were kind of going somewhere with that because the way they were just setting up everything, like, you want the right flavors, you want the right experience of it. And let's face it, fish farms are diminishing in quality as far as fish goes because we're just eating too much of it.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of ironic and interesting how it was an environmental call to action, but it was motivated by purely corporate need, as in able to make better sushi, better sushi. We need to be environmentally friendly because otherwise we'll be harvesting them too quickly. So it's like, the environmental needs serve the corporate needs, which I thought was just kind of interesting.
Which I kind of felt like maybe that could have actually helped a little bit more if they added a bit more of that. Whereas like it kind of like, well, we'll talk about this and now we're moving on. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like there's parts I think that is the reason why I give it a kind of an interesting rating, but I think it's an experience. I think going into it, just be prepared for what it's going to show you because your guys are right. It's like you are witnessing a man in his craft and every bit of detail is kind of being shown for a reason.
That was all thrown in there to placate the people who had a hard time watching the 200 shots of fish being butchered graphically on screen.
I can imagine the poor editors like who had to like go through all this footage and just be like, yeah, this is another fish, it's another octopus,
There's
another one, and
another
another one.
fish being gutted while still alive. Get this a
Probably at that
PG
point, like,
rating.
yeah, I think at that point it's like after seeing some of that so much just mutilation to the fish, it's like war movies don't bother me as much anymore.
My daughter was actually in the room while we were watching this movie. I was like, "Yep, there's another fish getting his head cut off."
She loves fish, doesn't she? She loves.
I don't know. I don't know if she has really any strong feelings toward fish.
Well, I mean,
Certainly not now. All right, so that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Film Illiterates podcast.
Okay.
You guys can find me at filmilliterates.com. Also search on Twitter at Film Illiterates. I manage that Twitter account. Nate, where can we find you?
Well, as always, you can find me here at Film Illiterates doing these wonderful podcasts with Joe and Alex. You can also find me on Instagram at Nathan Stone Films, spaced out by underscores. And I don't want you guys to follow me on Facebook at all. Please don't.
Alex, what's the Twitter account that you never use that we can follow you on?
At Alex D. Patton. You can follow me there. I'm on Twitter a lot, but I don't tweet much.
Oh, so you're one of those creepy types that just watches and other people's posts.
Well, I use it to keep up on like game updates and like esports updates.
Yeah, they send updates and
It's the fastest way to find everything out.
yeah, just getting pinged all the time.
I don't have to
No,
wait
yeah,
for Reddit thread.
I find I've been on Twitter more than Facebook lately. It's more entertaining and informative.
Also Letterbox as well, right?
Oh yes, that's right. You can find me at Letterbox if you search film-illiterate. Or
I will
Illiterates.
try to make a goal, guys, to actually get on Letterbox again and actually, write reviews because I'm slacking.
Do it. Just log your
I know,
movie
I
watching.
do
I'm very
that.
curious to see what your movie watching habits
I
are.
know. Yeah, exactly.
Download the Letterboxd app, guys.
Absolutely. Product placement.
Product placement, something we're not getting paid
Not
for.
sponsored yet.
Yeah, it's
And that will be it for the Film Illiterates podcast. So keep watching movies and keep it easy.